Nobody gives a damn what you feel. You've got an audience out there, and they want to hear you sing. Now, you want your mommy to love you. You go out there, and you do the only thing you're good for, which is singing that goddamn lollipop song.
Beatrice Horseman, the most disliked character on the show BoJack Horseman. In a series that promotes the context-dependent nature of morality, Beatrice rose as the villain in a pantheon of uniquely damaged characters. Well, she's not actually the villain, but most people aren't fans of hers. I asked BoJack Horseman discussion groups to pick their least favorite human or animal. Note, Diane isn't on this list because I already made a video defending her. Beatrice overwhelmingly got the most votes and a ton of people expressing how abusive and terrible she is.
I don't like the abuse of children.
Because she reminds me too much of my own mother, and that's horrible.
She's trash. It's comforting that her character dies alone in a nursing home.
Beatrice represents everything big or small we can resent about our parents or the people who raised us. Put-downs, lack of support, constantly being on edge, excessive and irrational anger. While I also don't like her as a person/horse, I find her endlessly fascinating as a character. Because even though she was abusive to BoJack, I don't think she was trying to be a bad person.
Don't sit so close to the TV. It'll make you cruel.
After watching and rewatching and sitting with the show since it came out in
2014,
I've come to believe that Beatrice, with her horrible behavior, was just doing the best that she could given her morose childhood. So that's why I'm defending her, even though she was a jerk, and that's an understatement. Exploring why she is the way she is might quell some of the visceral pent-up rage so many of us feel towards her, and potentially teach us more about one of the main driving themes behind the show. Everyone is a product of their past, and we're all just people trying to live in spite of that pain. Out of all the characters with depressing backstories, Beatrice is tied in first with whatever your favorite origin is. The central lesson Beatrice internalized from her childhood is that if you don't hide your emotions, bad things happen. Growing up, she lived with her quintessential 40s dad who was controlling, morally out of date in today's standards, and anti-feelings. He was a foil to Beatrice's mom who was free-spirited, sang, joked around, and expressed her emotions. This emotional expression was also her undoing when she went manic after the death of her son Crackerjack. When Beatrice's mom admitted she was depressed and needed help, instead of supporting her, Beatrice's dad had her lobotomized. Essentially, her mother's love for her son and trust in her husband resulted in a horrific Waking Dead-style ending. So when Beatrice's mom made Beatrice promise to never love anyone, Beatrice accepted because she had seen the damage being attached to people can bring.
Love does things to a person, terrible things. Beatrice, promise me you'll never love anyone as much as I loved Crackerjack.
I promise. I won't.
You can't let your womanly emotions consume you. You don't want to end up like your mother now, do you?
As Beatrice grew up, she internalized that lesson, becoming incredibly standoffish and dry to almost everyone. That is, until Butterscotch Horseman. When they first met, she felt like Butterscotch got her in her struggles. He was new, seemed equally rebellious and headstrong, and feigned vulnerability.
I was little. I don't remember really. But she had a diamond just like yours. I saw it in a picture once.
Encouraging her to be vulnerable in turn. That's when they hooked up, she got pregnant, and was trapped in a life she didn't want. Looking into the future or the present of the show, when she acted cold, despondent, and judgmental towards BoJack, I don't think it was a sociopathic decision to hurt her child. I think she was unconsciously listening to her mother's advice, which was reinforced when she let her guard down with Butterscotch. Every time Beatrice loved someone or something, it led to sadness. By not being affectionate with BoJack, she was teaching him the virtues she had followed her entire life. If you look at her comments toward BoJack in a vacuum, she seems cruel and abusive. However, if you look at them through the lens of her experience, they're still abusive, but appear less cruel. They're more like lessons in avoiding hurt and expectation.
Don't you dare cry. Don't you ever cry. You wanted this.
Either that, or she's distancing herself from him because she sees BoJack as a symbol for what can be taken away from you when you let others in. When she told BoJack,
You better grow up to be something great, to make up for all the damage you've done.
It's not some random insult. She's saying he was the reason she stayed with Butterscotch and never lived up to her full potential. It's not a great thing to burden your child with, but at the same time, she didn't have the emotional capacity to change or treat him differently. After reading BoJack's book, Beatrice calls BoJack to apologize for how she treated him as a child. She acknowledges,
I just wanted to tell you, I know you want to be happy, but you won't be, and I'm sorry.
What?
It's not just you, you know. Your father and I, well, you come by it honestly, the ugliness inside you. You were born broken. That's your birthright.
To me, it felt like an admission that she wasn't proud of who she was. And she knew BoJack struggled because of her demons. But because of what she went through, she wasn't capable of raising him or being any other way. She did what she could within her emotionally stunted confines. On a more relatable level, for those of us who haven't raised anyone, have you ever had those moments where you know you're being mean to someone who doesn't deserve it? You know you shouldn't treat them so badly, but you can't stop yourself. You don't know how to act different. Beatrice is that, but on a grander scale. I think Beatrice really did love BoJack, and if it wasn't for her trauma, Beatrice might have been a good mother to him. This shows through how she treated her baby doll when she had dementia. A major symptom of dementia is that you forget who you are. People who suffer from this disease tend to revert back to a childlike state, often before major emotional damage and outside influences. Within that child mind, people will sometimes remember important events and figures from throughout their lives to mix in with that altered persona. For Beatrice, those events and figures centered around BoJack and Henrietta, her old housekeeper. By the way, I'm not saying Beatrice fully reverted back, but she had her moments of thinking she was younger and was a lot more subdued and forgiving than we knew her seasons prior. Seeing Beatrice with dementia gave hints that she really does care for and love BoJack. Through her baby doll, she shows how she would have been as a mother if she had been encouraged to value love and expression. She likes to watch horsing around and mentions how comforting it is for her.
Because you love that BoJack, right?
Well, he's not much of a son, but the show can be a comfort sometimes.
Something she would have never said before.
They were playing your dumb show in his hospital room.
And when she was confused after BoJack left her in that bad nursing home, she calmed down when BoJack talked to her and reassured her everything was okay.
Your whole family is here, and they're telling you that everything is going to be all right.
Yes, that's right.
You get to see the comparison between her with grief and how she would have been if given the space to be herself. These moments of self-expression weren't just hidden away and revealed through her deteriorating mind. They happened sporadically in her life without the disease, with music being the connecting thread. At Beatrice's funeral, BoJack recounts,
She used to put on these shows with her supper club in the living room, and the big finale was always a dance my mother did. She had this beautiful dress that she only brought out for these parties, and she did this incredible number. It was so beautiful and sad. And as a child who was completely terrified of both my parents, I was always aware that this moment of grace, it meant something. My mother, she knew what it's like to feel your entire life like you're drowning, with the exception of these moments. These very rare, brief instances in which you suddenly remember you can swim.
she allowed herself to be free and revealed who she was through song and dance. Music is also something that connected her to her mother, who loved singing and the piano before her lobotomy. Through the fog of mental illness and music, we see who she really is, or who she could have been. Not a hardened monster, but a scared and rambunctious little girl looking for love and comfort that got lost in the maze of life. This acknowledgement that life tore her down ties into how she responded to Henrietta, her housekeeper, when she learned that she too had an affair with Butterscotch and got pregnant. Despite Henrietta being bubbly and Beatrice being more stoic, there are many parallels between the characters. They're both ambitious, they were both tricked with the same sweet line Butterscotch fed them.
He said you reminded him of his dead mother.
He said she had hair like mine. He saw it in a picture once.
But she had a diamond just like yours. I saw it in a picture once.
And they both wanted to keep his baby. The difference is Henrietta still had her life ahead of her. Henrietta represented the sparkle of youth and idealism that Beatrice used to have. So Beatrice used her ability to be objective and guarded to help Henrietta avoid the same mistakes she made when she was younger, when she kept BoJack, married Butterscotch, and gave up on her life.
They hardly knew each other, but they shared a certain sensitivity and a taste for the unknown. They were living in a one-horse town, so they headed west, towards a town that could accommodate 3 horses.
Oh yes, I think I have heard this story. They got a small house in San Francisco, near the bookstore.
He got in good with Squirrel and Getty and his scurry,
He wrote his great American novel.
while his wife took care of the baby. Well, if she'd have him. If a beautiful creature like herself could ever love an oaf like him.
I think she could. You think you want this, but you don't. Not like this.
Mrs. Horseman.
Don't throw away your dreams for this child. Don't let that man poison your life the way he did mine. You are going to finish your schooling and become a nurse. You'll meet a man, a good man, and you'll have a family. But please believe me, you don't want this. Please, Henrietta. You have to believe me. Please, don't do what I did.
She may have been stone-faced and rude in the moment, but she offered to pay for Henrietta's tuition to nursing school and held her hand through the delivery, something Beatrice didn't get when she was giving birth to BoJack. But immediately after Henrietta had the baby, Beatrice goes back to being cold-hearted. As an audience member, it broke my heart hearing Henrietta beg to hold her baby as Beatrice walked away without looking back. I couldn't understand how she could be so cruel. But again, putting it in context, Beatrice was being the strong person she felt she should have been in Henrietta's position. Additionally, I argue that taking the baby away wasn't just for Henrietta. I argue that by Beatrice insisting that Henrietta's baby be put up for adoption, she showed regret for raising BoJack the way she did. Remember how I said Beatrice apologized to BoJack for what she did to him emotionally while growing up? Well, Beatrice believed that Henrietta would do the same thing to her child if she let her keep it. By removing the baby, she wasn't just protecting Henrietta from becoming her. She was protecting the baby from becoming BoJack. This all seems like less of a stretch when you continue to think of what Beatrice reveals through her dementia. There's a scene when Beatrice is being loving towards her baby doll. BoJack gets jealous she's being better with it than she was with him, so he takes the doll and throws it around. Beatrice frantically tries to get the baby back while calling BoJack Henrietta and saying that,
Henrietta, you're unfit to be a parent.
Kind of like Beatrice thinks she's talking to the real Henrietta about her actual baby. And this isn't an isolated incident. She makes allusions to Henrietta and the baby through the doll and random conversations all the time. Almost like she sees the doll as the baby she took. Or Hollyhock, as we come to learn.
Henrietta, orange juice, now! You're not being paid for polite conversation.
BoJack, maybe you should just...
Oh, hello. It's you.
Hollyhock.
I can't believe you came back.
Who, me? Or BoJack?
You look just like him. Where's the girl?
She's gone, Mom.
Oh, yes, I took her, didn't I? Where did I put her?
Turns out being a parent is impossible. So I guess I can't be that mad at you.
Mad at me? No, Henrietta, this is the right thing. You'll see.
Beatrice wanted to give Hollyhock the care she deserved and a better life than the one she could give BoJack. That instinct to protect Henrietta and her child explains why she drugged Hollyhock with weight loss medication. A constant element through Beatrice's flashbacks is people ridiculing her for her figure and what she eats. Whether it was her mom telling her she couldn't have ice cream.
You know iced cream is for boys. You can sprinkle some sugar on a lemon. That's a good healthy girl snack.
Or the girls in school calling her fat.
Even your lungs expostulate as they struggle to expel your ample corpulence.
She's saying your lungs think you're fat, too.
Or her dad saying she had problems with her weight as a child.
Doctor says your throat is nearly swollen shut, so perhaps you'll finally lose some of that weight that's given you such troubles.
At one point before her debutante ball, she even asks for her pretty pills, aka weight loss pills, like it's something she'd taken for a while. This obsession with the scale is something she carried into dementia.
No ice cream for me, Henrietta. I'm watching my figure. No one loves a fatty patty.
By slipping Hollyhock Chub Be Gone until she
learned to take it herself,
Beatrice was trying to prevent Hollyhock from facing the same taunting she did. Also, given the specificity of the tactic Beatrice used to give Hollyhock the drugs, it felt like she was most likely doing the same thing her father had done to her before to get her to take her pretty pills. Much like every character in the show, Beatrice's flaws can be traced back to her past, but more specifically to her dad. What I find interesting about Beatrice is that she doesn't seem to resent him for what he did, unlike BoJack, who hates his parents with a fiery passion.
And when her eyes sparkle with recognition, I'm gonna sit down next to her, I'm gonna squeeze her hand and get real close and say, "Fuck you, Mom."
Beatrice sees her dad as a good man and will often speak highly of him.
Do you want this painting? It belonged to your grandfather, a man who knew what marriage meant.
I think the difference between how BoJack and Beatrice see their upbringings is the decisions they made at crucial stages of their lives. When Beatrice was 21-ish, just getting out of college, she was finding herself and wanted to make a difference in the world. But before she could accomplish anything, she got pregnant and stayed with Butterscotch. A fate that she could have avoided if she had dated the man her dad was pushing her towards. And when Butterscotch and her were penniless living in a garbage apartment, her dad swooped in and gave Butterscotch a job so she can retain some semblance of her old well-off life. He helped her out. Despite her dad being a jerk, he always came in when she needed him and was proven right. Beatrice's dad burnt her doll to prevent her from catching scarlet fever again because they thought the doll was infected. He was concerned about Beatrice dying in a car accident when her mother let her drive home during her quote-unquote
fits of hysteria.
Because Beatrice started a family she didn't want when she was young and didn't know anyone, Her dad was the only person there to pick up the pieces. She never had an opportunity to meet others who allowed her to grow on her own or be there for her emotionally. Beatrice abused BoJack in a more overt way, with less hiding behind a mask of care. You think that would be more damaging. But at the same age Beatrice was forced into a job as a housewife, BoJack wasn't tethered. He could go out, meet, and interact with people who propped him up, and taught him he could improve if he wanted to, and that there's more to him than his past. Beatrice never had that, so she clung to the idea that what she went through was fine. Beatrice was taught
Time's arrow neither stands still nor reverses. It merely marches forward.
and there's nothing you can do to change anything. BoJack was exposed to people that taught him that the arrow's path doesn't have to be straight. You can make your own path. At this point, I feel compelled to note that this defense of Beatrice isn't meant to say what she did was okay. The way she hurt BoJack was gross and despicable. This dissection isn't meant to justify her behavior, but rather explain that she might not deserve all the unadulterated fury thrown at her. While discussing why she did certain things doesn't make them good, it helps to make her, as a character, a little more sympathetic and forgivable. There are horrible people in the world that are just evil, but I don't think Beatrice is one of them. Sometimes the reason people are monsters isn't because they want to be. It's because pain and brainwashing can be so strong that it can't help but trickle down through generations. For me, Beatrice's arc shows us two things. One, it demonstrates how important being vulnerable is to the journey of finding happiness and yourself. And two, no matter what the situation, we're only trapped if we believe it. We all have a choice to shift the arrow. Because while we're all influenced by the past, it doesn't have to define our future.
Beatrice Horseman was born in 1938 and she died in 2018, and I have no idea what she wanted. Unless she just wanted what we all want. To be seen.
And that is my defense of Beatrice Horseman. Right now I want to acknowledge my patrons Matt, David, and Patrick. Thank you guys so much for your support. If you guys also want to help me out, you can like this video, subscribe to my channel, and/or donate to my Patreon. The link is in the description below. I'll talk to you guys later. Bye.